Hello and welcome to the AVForums podcast for Monday the 4th of July, and joining me on this edition, our assistant editor, Steve Withers.
You're like Jesus, he was arrogant and all his miracles were fake.
News editor, Mark Hodgkinson.
The more you look, the less you see.
Audio reviewer, Ed Selley.
I just want to say I'm flattered because I always considered myself and never was.
And Mr. Mark Botwright.
I idolise you, seriously.
Thank you, Mark. Very kind of you. Happy Independence Day to our US listeners. Hope you have a great day, and happy 3rd anniversary to the AVForums weekly podcast. I was going to say, can you believe we've been doing 3 years of this? But yes, I can. It feels like longer.
Well, you know, it is what it is. It's. I mean, we've moved the days around. I mean, these days I do them sober. You know, it is what it is, isn't it? You know, on occasions people say nice things about us, which makes it sort of feel a bit more worthwhile. Actually, commendably few people tell us that we're arseholes. So, you know, on balance, it's not so bad.
It's just I hide that stuff away from you guys. I don't want to, affect your confidence.
Is it our safe space on AVForums?
Yeah, that's it.
You just see the stuff that gets cleared out of YouTube.
Right, moving things along. What can we win this week, Mr. Botwright?
We've still got the 5 pairs of Q Acoustics BT3 Bluetooth speakers, and that one is open to all members until the 13th of July. And that's our only competitions at the moment.
And do we have any winners?
We have. Dave Ray, I think that's how we'll pronounce it, won The Mist on Blu-ray, and the Noon...
Davery myself.
I would have said Davery.
Davery won The Mist.
But Dave Ray probably makes more sense.
He knows who he is.
Dave Ray sounds better.
And the Noon VR headset was won by Ducky Senpai.
You sure
That's a
about
good
that?
name, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a great name.
Congratulations to both winners on not having a random number in their name.
Yeah.
That's good. I like that. Shows integrity.
Right, there we go. That's competitions. Moving things swiftly on. Let's Go Hardware. Let's Go 75 inches, Steve.
Size does matter, doesn't it, when it comes to home AV?
Well, not in your case, but go on.
Yes, the Sony KD75 XD9405, which is their flagship model for this year. And last year's version, the 75X93C, was an absolutely stonking telly. Probably, so definitely one of my favourites of last year. I thought it was a cracking TV. Obviously, they only come in the one screen size, which is a little bit of an issue because 75 inches is pretty big for the average living room, I'd have said. And also, last year's model, of course, had the gigantic speakers on either side, which made it even bigger and heavier. This year, they've dropped the big speakers, which I think is a definite move in the right direction because it makes it far more flexible, easier to install, easier to move. And obviously, anyone buying a 75-inch screen is probably going to have their own outboard solution anyway in terms of audio. So it doesn't really need that. I mean, although it sounded great, I just don't think it was ever going to get used that much by people who bought a 75-inch TV.
It was such a wide thing as well. And when you're talking 75 inches
gigantic.
And then add the speakers on the sides.
It was huge.
Yeah.
And it was, it was kind of a wedge shape. I mean, and they gradually sort of narrowed the wedge over a course of about 2 generations. But it was big, it was heavy. And I imagine wall mounting would have been a real struggle. But this year's generation, it's slimmer. So it's very slim. In fact, it's considering it's got a full array backlight, it's surprisingly slim. It doesn't have the big speakers, so they're built in the base of it. And again, even though it's got speakers and electronics and everything built in, it's still incredibly thin. It goes from about, I think it's like centimetre at the top down to about 4 centimetres at the bottom. So it's incredibly thin for a full array backlight with local dimming. In terms of performance, I have to say, in terms of measuring it, and I mean, last year's TV was really good. I mean, I think it was ahead of the curve in many respects last year. This seems to me like it's just last year's TV without the big speakers, because the performance is, as far as I can tell, identical. In terms of its colour space coverage, it measured it at 88% of DCI P3, which seems more like last year's model and would explain why it doesn't have Ultra HD Premium certification. And in terms of peak brightness, I got about 750 nits out of it, which on a 10% window, which again seems more like last year's models than this year's. Having said that, it's still a fantastic performer. I mean, it was great last year. It remains really good this year. It delivers a very accurate picture, particularly with Rec 709, very accurate. You can calibrate a nice, smooth grayscale. You've got a very bright picture. So you certainly day and night settings in Rec 709, you can get cracking performance there. The performance with HDR in terms of measurements was very good, except it did clip. It did clip HDR10 content, unfortunately. But otherwise, I think overall it was a very solid performer. But I do get this feeling, because even looking at the software, the firmware, the way that when it detected HDR10, it grayed out the local dimming control, which I noticed isn't the case on the XD93, which suggests it may even be an older version of the firmware. However, having said all that, I still think it's a stellar performer. And for $5,000, you're getting an awful lot of TV.
How much?
4,999.
Really?
Wow, for 75 inches.
75 inch.
I'm shocked.
Come down a long way.
Jeez, so, I mean, look at LG's 77-inch OLED thing, and it's 25 grand.
No, it is absolutely stonking value. I mean, if you say $5,000 is good value, it is for what you're getting. I mean, you're getting a really, really big TV, but a really good performer too. The local dimming on it is excellent.
I was about to ask you, is it better than last year's? Because they were harping on about that, weren't they?
Same. Well, I haven't got a direct comparison, but given so much of it seems the same as last year, I'm thinking it's probably the same as last year.
What's screen uniformity like? Because, I mean, you're talking about a big area to cover there.
I have to say, the screen uniformity was given the size of that screen, incredibly good. There was a hint of banding watching the football, the hint of it, but I've yet to see, to be honest, a full, I mean, particularly when you consider how slim it is, yet to see a full array backlight TV that doesn't have a little bit of banding on pans, just by the nature of the way that the LEDs are behind the panel.
Now, were you actually looking for that, Steve?
I was looking for it,
yes.
I think you probably wouldn't notice it most of the time unless you went looking for things like that. But the uniformity itself was superb. It's a little bit, at the very edges of the screen, it's a little bit darker, right at the very edges, which you wouldn't notice unless you were looking at test pans or looking for issues, because you're not really looking at the edge of the screen. But obviously, on a 75-inch screen, that's a lot of real estate to have to light up. But yeah, I mean, no dirty screen effect, no cloudiness, nothing. I mean, that bit very impressive. When you combine the VA panel with the local dimming, it is a stellar performer. And like I said, for the money, I mean, that kind of screen size, absolute bargain. And I'm really glad they got rid of the big speakers too. I think that would have put me off buying it in the past.
Right, I have to take you back to the football comment, Steve, because I don't quite believe you. So you're saying that on Monday you were watching the football and you weren't in a fit of depression or getting angry or anything like that. You were looking for banding.
I actually watched more than one game on it, because the England game I only watched the first 10 minutes. After their second goal, I turned it off.
How does it handle motion, like a Roy Hodgson face rub?
I tell you what, motion handling on this TV is excellent. I think having of all the sort of full array backlight TVs we've tested, I don't know if you agree with this, Mark. You haven't really seen this TV, unfortunately, but I think for sport, for watching football particularly, and I know I've got a couple of friends who are big into their football, and both of them ended up buying, and they went through quite a few TVs before.
I'd say the XD93 was the best TV I've had for football, including plasma and including OLED.
I know two guys who've been through Panny, Samsung, and they've got XD9, but actually they've got X93Cs, 94Cs, X94Cs. But both of them agreed that in terms of for watching football, there was no competition.
Yeah, I would definitely say that.
Another friend of mine who's just got the XD93, again for the same reason. So I think if you're really into your football, the Sonys are very strong contenders for that. Gaming wise, it was measuring. It was a bit weird. Again, like the XD93C, if you had the local dimming on, the input lag would sort of cycle between 34 and 54, and then back again. Turn it off and it just measured at 34 milliseconds, which is I think for most people would be fine in terms of input lag.
Now, could you imagine that, Mr. Botwright? 75 inches of real estate in front of you for gaming.
Yeah, that'd be nice. if there's one going, yes.
Yeah, that's got to be appealing. Great input lag figures there, Steve. Really good.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, it's just I do think that it seems to be porting over a lot of tech from last year, but it's still a stellar performer. And like I said, for that kind of money, if you're looking for a really big screen size, well, you can't go wrong, really.
I think if I had that kind of disposable income, that's certainly something I'd be looking at. If that is a bargain, $5,000 for that, and the performance that you're suggesting they're going to get.
Also, I have to say, a gorgeous looking telly as well. I mean, this year's design, I think, is really, really attractive. Sony have always been good at design, but this one I think is particularly gorgeous with the gold trim around the edge.
Well, there's only so much you can do with a rectangle that's black.
Yeah, rectangular, reflective. Yeah.
Although saying that, we have got a designer TV coming in, haven't we? First week in July. Obviously, we're at the end of the month now, into the new month, and you've got the what is it? The 802, the DX802. From Panasonic, which has got that gorgeous stand. You either hate it or you love it, but I think the more I saw it at the convention back in February, it grew on me quite a bit. Beautiful looking TV.
I think placement of everything with that. You have to have the right home, the right furniture for that.
I think definitely a low wide unit would certainly suit that. But as a work of art, as well as a really nice looking TV, because it's the same as the 902 in most respects. Then it's it looks like it's going to be quite a contender, Steve.
Yeah, definitely. They actually went. The coders they designed it in conjunction with an actual interior design company in Italy, I believe, and it's definitely striking. I mean, in an age when TVs are starting to get quite homogenous in terms of their look, it's nice to see someone trying to do something a bit different. Plus, also by building in a soundbar, you're going to get good audio performance out of it. Probably. I mean, obviously, wait till we see it, but that suggests you might get a better performance in terms of audio. And
quite a smart move as well to use one model in the lineup to do that instead of forcing that design on everybody, because I think that was a mistake that certainly Panasonic made last year, and quite a few other TV manufacturers, where they put the feet right at the edges of the screen. So you got a 50 or above screen, and you got the feet are right at the edges of the screen. You need a wide TV cabinet, and a lot of people won't have bought the TV because of that.
Yeah, no, well, I think obviously Panasonic realised that, because this year they've got the multiple different configurations for the stand, so you can have central or feet at the edge, which I think is a very clever idea, and I'm amazed that other people haven't done it as well. So it's only the DX802 that really has that wide designer stand. Otherwise, you do, and the 902 as well, actually. But certainly for the lower ranges, you have plenty of options in terms of installing the TV. I think that was really good. Clearly, that was them taking feedback from consumers and thinking, okay, we probably lost sales because of the very reason you just suggested, Phil.
Yeah. So let's move on to the 65KS 9000 from Samsung. Mark, does it have a wide stand on it?
No, it's not particularly wide. It fits on a standard unit that's less than a metre wide. I think I measured it at 80. I'm going to test it from memory here now. I think it was 83 centimetres end to end. 89. There it is, 89 end to end. So no, it's not particularly wide. Easy enough to accommodate on your furniture. Steve's reviewed the 55-inch. I didn't really find anything particularly different than Steve did. It's curved. It's which actually annoyed me the more time went on, just with the football, because I watched so much football with the Euros on. The bending of the lines and the penalty box and stuff, it just started to grate after a while. Most of the time it doesn't really affect me. Certainly watching just general TV or movies, it just kind of blends in and I forget about it. But yeah, having been exposed to so many straight lines that weren't, it started to grate after a while, to be quite honest. Other than that, it's an impressive TV. The design is the 360-degree ethos that Samsung have introduced for the top-end TVs this year. So it's got a fancy back panel, as it were, and you've got the One Connect box, so you can keep the wiring down to a minimum. One thing I will say is there's a little detachable plastic panel on the back left where you attach the One Connect box and Ethernet cable. And various, it's got a USB input there as well, and it's the opening at the bottom is just not wide enough. So if you've got two cables in there, it just comes off after a while. So that they could do with just widening
that hole a bit bigger,
just making that hole a little bit bigger. Yes. In terms of performance, it's very little to fault it. It easily hit 98% of DCI color space. It's an Ultra HD premium certified TV, so it just got over 1,000 nits of peak brightness on a small window. In fact, something strange with that, it kind of, I don't know, it must be an energy saving thing, but if you keep the window up there, it fluctuates quite a lot. So when I first measured it, it was something like 400 nits, and then it gradually went up in steps. So It's not going to be an issue in your actual real world material where the specular highlights are only, they're only there for a fleeting amount of time. But it was interesting nonetheless. You do have to have the dimming on its strongest setting to get that kind of light output, though, which can cause its own issues with plumes of light coming from the top and bottom, a kind of like a what's the word I'm looking for, a blooming effect with bright objects on dark backgrounds. The dimming is based at the top and bottom. That's where the lighting system is, and you can sometimes just see the screen getting probably about a centimetre at the top and a centimetre at the bottom. There's just a little band where the image goes lighter than the rest of it. Again, that's not really an issue unless you're focusing your eyes to the tops and bottoms of the screen, which you don't really in everyday use.
It's basically on 2.35 to 1 films and black bars, it tends to be the most obvious, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. If it catches your eye, can be a little bit distracting. No, it's no big deal. The dimming system in general is actually really good for an edge-based system. It's pretty fast to react, and you don't normally see it in operation. It's just with things like menus and credits and stuff, it becomes a little bit noticeable. But in general content, just the way it is, you don't really see it. Flashing on and off too much. Out of the box, it was reasonably accurate. A little bit of deficit of green, but I'd rather have that than an excess of green. It looked pretty nice out of the box, calibrated up well, of course. The one thing that I would say would annoy me, particularly if you watch a lot of sport, it's got this stuttery motion every now and again where there's some background motion pressing. This is with Motion Plus switched off. It just kind of stutters and stalls for a couple of seconds, like someone's pressing rewind and fast forward in quick succession, and it just splutters a bit, and it's every now and again. So maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 times during a 90-minute game it'll happen, and I don't know. It probably would over time start to wear me down, that. And it's something that's been in the high-end Samsungs since I've been reviewing TVs. So I don't know what the background processing is, but it can cause effects sometimes. Although for most of the time, the motion handling is actually quite good. The sound quality was good. It's quite impressive, actually. I was pretty impressed with it. It's got a decent mid-range, good highs, bit of bass there as well. Input lag was less than 22 milliseconds, which is excellent.
Samsung are really hitting it out the park this year.
Big time.
They really are. Yeah. And what I did enjoy while gaming, because I've been doing quite a bit of gaming recently, is sticking the colour gamut on native and gaming with a really wide colour gamut. It really looks nice. It really does. And yeah, overall, it was a highly recommended TV. Is what it came out at. Just with a couple of annoyances. Regarding the Tizen platform, there's still no UK catch-up services there at all. I've been told by Samsung they are coming Q3 and Q4 later in the year. Oh, there's one thing I didn't mention was the moth eye filter. I didn't really find it that effective in bright conditions, although it did really help it held onto its blacks in darker conditions.
You really have a torture test for that.
I do.
Because you place the TV...
You've got a window opposite.
Yeah, he places the TV opposite a window, so... Yeah, that's a real torture test for anyone.
It is a real torture test, but I can't remember. I've certainly had a TV here that stood up better to that than this moth eye filter does in the KS9000. Although, as I say, once it starts getting a bit dimmer, it really does help with those black levels. It really does reject the ambient light just in the evenings, and it looks pretty impressive. So yeah, I was pretty impressed with this TV. Just one or two little flaws, but then that's every TV.
Strange that they're taking given that they for a long time Samsung had the best platform in terms of choices of catch-up services. I mean, they had them all, and when nobody else did, it's strange that they're now.
Well, I think it's just switched to Tizen, isn't it?
Yeah, I know.
It needs recoding, doesn't it? And the developers need to redo it. I think they'd have
thought about that, because going almost a whole year without actually having any of the UK catch-up services for a UK TV is a bit of a fail, really, on their part.
Yeah, particularly when Sony and Panasonic have got everything, haven't they?
And LG,
and LG, yeah. Well, I've not had an LG TV this year, but yeah, I'll take your word for it. But yes.
Yeah.
I don't think there's many people had LG TVs this year.
No.
They are pretty rare. Right, so we've had most of the TVs in this year now. There's just the few waifs and strays that we need to get hold of just to make sure that we've covered everything. But now we're at that point. How's 2016 up to this point? Because there are late additions to be added after IFA, but up to this point, where are we in terms of 2016? Is it a good year for TVs, or would you still be sitting on the fence?
I think I'd always be sitting on the fence, to be quite honest. I know there's something better around the corner. But if I had to buy a TV this year, then I wouldn't be upset. There's 2 or 3 that they'd be well up there.
I think if you're looking, if you want a slim edge-lit TV, the Sony XT93's got to be a contender.
Yeah,
that's a very good performer and gorgeous and very slim. If you fancy a bit of curve action, the 9000, or if you don't, the 8000, the KS8000 from Samsung again. I think we haven't seen the 8000 yet, but based upon my experiences with the other TVs, I'd say they'd have to be contenders. The Panasonic DX902, that's got staggering color accuracy, so that's definitely got to be a contender for anyone. I mean, I know some owners have had some niggles of little things, but I thought it was a superb TV. Although, unfortunately, we tested it quite early in the year, so we haven't actually had a chance to fully test it with HDR yet, but we will at some point. And, for sheer value, the XE94 that I've just been talking about earlier in this podcast, 75 inches for $4,999, you can't really knock that. The OLEDs, we've only seen one so far. It was the C6, the curved one, but I have seen a couple of others, B6 and E6, not for review, but just generally seen them, and they look really, really good too. I think they're stellar performance when it comes to Rec 709 content particularly. So this is a strong year for TVs. But as Mark's just pointed out, there's so much changing, so much going on. And it'll be interesting to see what gets announced at IFA and then into CES, because, there's still a lot of development going on as far as peak brightness goes. I think there's going to be some interesting announcements in terms of technology. So if you have to buy a TV this year, there's some great choices. If you don't have to buy a TV this year, and if you can wait for another year, I don't think I think probably have to sit on the fence for one more year.
I think that's the best bit of advice we can give is if you don't need to get a TV, then hang on, because I think next year is going to be interesting in terms of seeing exactly where the industry is going to go. Are they going to go open source HDR10 with the new metadata, or are we going to see more from Dolby Vision? And at the minute, it's not looking that great for Dolby Vision, because it doesn't look like they're getting much back in certainly in the UK, other than LG at the minute.
That's funny you should mention that, Phil, because I was something I did mention in the review, but it was something that I noticed, and then I worked out why, because it seemed a very strange thing to have on an OLED television. But there was a control in Dolby Vision that had local dimming control. I thought, why is that there? This is an OLED. It doesn't have any local dimming. But I realised, of course, it's a standard chipset provided by Dolby, and it's applicable to lots of different TVs. So it's just in there. It doesn't work. If you change it, nothing happens. It doesn't affect the OLED because it doesn't have a local dimming system. But it's obviously there because it's a standard chipset that Dolby are using, and LG have obviously implemented, that's provided by Dolby. And that kind of ties in with some other manufacturers saying, like, we don't want everything to be provided by a single third party where we're utterly at their mercy in terms of whether they deliver it on time.
Totally. If it's taken over other controls and stuff from the chipset, no. If I was a manufacturer, I'd be...
Because I was thinking like, what the hell is that? And then I thought, what does it do? Nothing. Okay, that's weird. And then it dawned on me. I thought, I get it. Of course, this would also be used on a local dimming TV. That's.
Surely LG could have the option to grey that out of the menus.
Apparently not. I honestly think that with Dolby Vision, it is end to end, and they control every single aspect of it. That's what I've been told by other manufacturers, and one of the reasons why they weren't so keen to get in bed with them. Yeah, interesting. But you're right. As far as manufacturer support is concerned, there doesn't seem to be a great deal of traction for Dolby Vision at the moment, other than LG. And as far as software support, well, we can talk about this now, I suppose. It's the next subject. Dolby Vision has been added to Amazon, at least in the US. So that means Netflix worldwide is now supporting Dolby Vision. Voodoo,
not Hulu.
Voodoo, yeah. It's Voodoo, isn't it?
Yeah. I always get confused between Voodoo and Hulu.
Yeah, Voodoo in the States also supports Dolby Vision, and now Amazon in the States is supporting Dolby Vision. So from a streaming perspective, there is quite a bit of traction for Dolby Vision. And I suspect that's partly because, again, anything where it's suboptimal, and let's be honest, streaming is suboptimal as a way of delivering video and audio. I think Dolby Vision helps out. Whereas in terms of Ultra HD Blu-ray, which obviously is perfect every time you play it, that's got so far there's been no announcements regarding Dolby Vision with Ultra HD Blu-ray. So they are getting some traction on the streaming side, but again, if you go into streaming, you'll still have the option of HDR10 as well. So it's
you're hardly losing.
No, you're not exactly losing. So if you're sitting there thinking, oh, do I wait for Dolby Vision? Well, I wouldn't necessarily wait for Dolby Vision.
Well, I mean, the big thing is that HDR10 adding the dynamic metadata is going to level the playing field that little bit more. Dolby may still have some proprietary stuff in their system, but HDR10 is going to catch up quite significantly. And like we've said and hinted at, a lot of manufacturers don't want to buy into Dolby Vision for various reasons. So if HDR10 is being developed to catch up, then that's where if I was a betting man, and I'm not, I'd be putting a bit of a wager on that one. And we'll know come CES.
I'd be interested to see if Vizio maintain the association with Dolby Vision into next year. If the HDR10 metadata thing goes through, then why would Vizio need to pay the premium to Dolby Vision? It's all about cut price sets.
Yeah, but there's also the marketing thing. Sometimes people like marketing because they've got the Dolby name or the logo and that kind of thing. So sometimes
that's
it's purely
probably why Hisense and TCL, for example, have partly I think it's a shortcut for them in terms of adding HDR. They let Dolby do all the work, but also it gives them a bit of kudos, doesn't it, to have Dolby Vision on their sets?
Well, that's it. It's a logo. It's a brand that people know, and it's been around since a long time ago. I mean, if you're old enough, you'll remember the Dolby logo back in the days when cassette tape was a big thing, Ed. Dolby noise reduction and all that kind of thing. I mean,
do you remember Dolby Stereo making film sound better?
Yeah, and I remember the SR trailer where it was across the field, and then suddenly the cliff that just dropped off. The overhead camera. It was always shot in a helicopter. Yeah, I remember all the old trailers.
Dolby digital trailer with the one with the sort of Egyptian.
Oh, I had all of them. I had all of them.
They were great.
Sometimes you'd buy a Laserdisc just because it had a new Dolby trailer on it. That's sad. Hey, you kind of talk.
Yeah, I know.
Oh God,
Mr. Smurfs 2 on Ultra HD Blu-ray.
You need to keep the collection together, and it will be studied in the years to come as just a sort of time capsule of banality.
It just so happened that Steve was speaking to the CTO of Sony Pictures yesterday. We both were, and we mentioned this Master 2 to him. I think Steve was trying to be a bit funny, but the guy.
No, he was like, going, "Oh, you'll be amazed." He said, "You've watched there's a slight blue, but there's a purple within the blue of the animation apparently that you can see in the Ultra HD Blu-ray, but you can't see on the Rec 709 Blu-ray." I thought, okay, well, I'll have a look for that.
Yeah. Actually, coincidentally, that's one of the titles that Amazon have added to with Dolby Vision.
All right.
Smurfs 2. Yeah.
So there is no
getting
getting away
if you live
from
in the
it.
States.
You do actually have to watch it at some stage.
I plan to review it in the very near future.
But there you go.
Stay tuned. Maybe I might even talk about it next week.
Oh dear me, I am so tired. That was a hell of a drive. So yesterday I had to drive from Weybridge back to Durham, and left Weybridge at 8 o'clock at night, thinking, "Oh, the road's going to be clear. I should get back quite quickly."
You don't visit the south very often, do you?
Well, it wasn't the south where the problems were. They closed 4-lane motorway. They closed 3 lanes at 2 different points.
On the M1.
On the M1. So one was south of Northampton, and then once I got past there and towards Nottingham, it did it again. So the traffic, even at that time of night, came to a standstill, absolute standstill, with all the heavies and stuff on the road. And then just as I'm getting up to Scotch Corner A66, they closed the A1M northbound completely. So I was off on B roads and A roads and all sorts. So at 2:30 in the morning, I finally got home to Durham. But at least Steve got his first launch control yesterday.
That was awesome. I actually had a quivery feeling in my tummy as we went zooming off. I just hope there weren't any cameras around, Phil.
I'm hoping there wasn't, because there was a big thing flashing.
There was a sign that said cameras.
Yeah, there's a thing flashing 30 as well as we went past it.
Yeah.
North 60.
I didn't have a launch control moment. I did have an aborted landing yesterday, which was pretty.
Which airline were you on?
British Airways. We got down to about, I suppose, twice the height of my house, and one wing dipped quite alarmingly. And they and there's the normal amount of noise that these things make when they take off. And then there's a sort of Hollywood-style firewall.
Yes.
Yeah, well, go rounds are completely different.
Yeah, we went for firewalling it. It's like, well, this is fun. And as I say, it's disappointing at Terminal 5 because I promise you, if I'd have walked down steps, I'd have been like the Pope and kissed the bloody tarmac. Yeah, that was.
I once landed at Jersey Airport, which has got a famously very, very short runway for 737s. It's a bit on the short side, so they have to be very careful and hit the tarmac right at the beginning of the runway, and then slow down very quickly to not sort of go off the end into the sea. And this pilot came down way too far down the runway, and he hit the ground, and he slammed on all the brakes, and he shut on the engines in reverse, and the whole thing sort of groundhog just stopped in time before we hit the end of the runway. All the luggage and the passengers are flying forward, and as he turned the plane around to go back up the runway, he went, "Sorry about that."
Yeah. Oh, we were standing next to Concorde yesterday as well, weren't we?
Yeah.
That's an impressive beast when you're up close
Even
to
now, after all this time, it's still really impressive.
That's the sad thing. I mean, you look at that technology. We're at Brooklands Museum, by the way, if you're wondering where we saw it. And,
do you want to tell them not to bother going?
Yeah, don't bother going. I mean, we went at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it closes at 5 during the summer. And I thought, an hour, we'll run round and we'll see what we want to see, the major things. 15 minutes later, we're like, is that it?
I think if you were a real engineering geek, you probably would find it a lot more interesting.
Yes, and I think
if you're a car fanatic, you probably would find it interesting.
But early cars, early race cars, and early British race cars, because obviously that's the whole point of Brooklands. I mean, the track, the actual bend, the wall. That is so impressive when you're standing next to it, and you're looking at the cars from the early 1900s that would be racing around there at 70, 80 miles an hour. No wonder people were flying off the top and getting killed. I mean, it's just so impressive when you see it. But in terms of
looking at some of those cars, Phil, those guys had balls the size of church bells, didn't they?
Early race cars are absolutely phenomenal things.
Yeah.
They are. It's an absolute that designed by a mentality which simply doesn't exist today. It's like, okay, so we've managed to increase horsepower by about 45% over last year. That's great. Have we changed the brakes, the chassis, or anything? No.
Yeah. And when you see how these things are held together as well, and the engineering's fantastic, because you're looking at things and you're thinking, that hasn't changed in 90 odd years, 100 years. Certain components and certain ways of doing things and so on. But then in other respects, you see it and you think, my God, there's no way I'd get in that thing. There's absolutely no way. And doing 60, 70 miles an hour round the bank, round the bowl.
Which is pretty steep.
No, you don't realise how incredibly steep it is until you're standing next to it. But that in Concorde wasn't worth 20 minutes and however much it was to get in. I can't remember now. But
you got a discount at least. It was like $5.50, I think it was each.
Aren't you supposed to read all the little placards and bits of information next to everything?
Yeah.
I get the
feeling seen that. Where's the gift shop?
Yeah, Stephen Phil just ran around, went to the gift shop and had an ice cream.
No, we didn't even have an ice cream. That was the disappointing thing. He wouldn't buy me an ice cream. And I gave him a launch control as well.
I hope that out of context it just sounds terrible.
Yeah. I think if you've got the time and you're really interested in that, and I've got to say the volunteers that are there obviously help the place run. And I did stop and ask a question to one guy and then thought, why did I ask that? Because I'm going to be here for half an hour. But the information he got back was genuinely, these guys are really interested in what they do and interested in the technology. So if you're interested in it, I can see how it would be a great day out for everybody else. I think if you're not that great an interest in the early motors or in the airplanes, the other thing was it felt run down, didn't it, Steve?
Yeah,
it just felt like money hadn't been spent on the place for a long time.
It felt like the UK in microcosm, didn't it, basically? Like glory days are long past.
Hoping for a nice EU grant.
Well, it's got a big lottery grant because they were building a brand new hangar because they've got a Wellington bomber that they pulled up of the bottom of Loch Ness. That's only two left, I think, and they're renovating it at the moment. So that was quite cool. I love Wellington bombers. and Lancaster bombers. They were brilliant. And they had a Harrier jump jets, which is always fun because you always think of True Lies whenever you see that.
Yeah, and there's no way he did what he did in that film.
No one could do that without running out of fuel in about 5 seconds.
It's not the fuel that's an issue; it's the engine overheat. What was it? In the originals it was 50 seconds, and in the last line you got 2.5 minutes before it literally just turned into a puddle of molten metal and fell out the bottom of the plane.
Yeah,
They still look cool.
right.
Indeed.
Okay, that was another diversion.
Yeah, back to the AV.
It's always like my drive back yesterday. All these diversions and going.
I just say that my drive back clear as a bell.
Yeah,
not a single bit of traffic. It was great.
Anyway, moving on. Now TV, they've launched a new contract-free triple play bundle. What does this all mean, Mark?
Well, it means exactly that. Now TV was launched in 2012. Can you believe it was that long ago? Only 4 years ago. That's probably what surprised me most about that news. So not only do Now TV, who are distancing themselves from Sky in the marketing, and notice now they want to be their own separate entity. Not only do they now offer a pay-as-you-go, almost monthly TV subscription package choice of either entertainment, kids, or sport, or movies, they are jumping in on the broadband and telephone game. So you can now get your hands on Sky content and Sky broadband without signing up for a 12-month pass. It launches in July alongside some new hardware, which is the new Now TV Smart Box. So it's basically a Now TV box streaming device with a Freeview tuner, so you can get all your Freeview content through it. It's also got it must have a small hard drive built in because you can pause up to 30 seconds with the live TV. And other than that, I mean, you get in all the it's just the standard Now TV packages at a range of prices, but you can combine them together into a combo bundle and save yourself a few quid prospectively. Now, what I haven't done is compared this directly because it's quite difficult to do that because packages are slightly different on Sky than they are on Now TV. To what it will cost for Sky, but I've got the feeling it's round about the same, probably a little bit more expensive to do it on a month by month basis. But yeah, it's an interesting move. I'm not sure how many people are that bothered about being tied into 12-month contracts on broadband and phones. Personally, I'm not that bothered, but it might suit some people, and it's another option there. You get 3 broadband speeds to choose from, so you've got up to 17 meg, up to 38 meg, and the super fiber, which is up to 76 megabytes per second. A choice of call packages, so a pay as you like, only pay for calls you make, an evening and weekends package, or an anytime calls package, and then you bolt on whichever TV packages you want, and out comes a price at the end. I don't know if it's slightly surprising.
Sorry, what are the names of the broadband packages?
Oh, no, brilliant! Thank you for pointing that out, Mark. You have a brilliant broadband that's up to 17 meg, Fab Fiber, which is the 38 meg package, and Super Fiber, which is the 76.
And will also serve to be the name of some intriguing new breakfast cereals that now decides to push things a bit further.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, the brilliant Fab and Super are all relevant if you live where I live, I believe. Just ring them up just for a laugh and say, right, come on then, get this fibre in.
There is a disclaimer at the top that you have to
sod off.
Yeah, sod off with us. Basically, it says. So it's kind of interesting that Sky think they need to make a dual assault on the triple bundle package market, but they obviously seem to think it's going to work. So
it's kind of like a similar kind of competitor to like with BTTV, and they've got their box which you can plug in the aerial and it gives you access to a certain amount of paid for channels.
Yeah, it's very much like that. The big USP at the top of the marketing was that it's the UK's only contract-free triple pay bundle. So this contract-free thing it seems to be the big selling point on it, rather than what's the content available and the hardware to run it.
That is the best thing about Now TV. I mean, why would anyone want to, unless you really, really want the sport, I suppose, but why would you pay all that money for Sky and on a contract when you can just pay, what was it, $4.99 a month and get get all the stuff you really want to watch anyway.
I think quality is the thing, isn't it? I mean, now TV's not got the greatest picture quality.
No,
So
it's okay though.
it's all right. It's for the money you pay. You tend to think, oh well, it's all right for
better than a lot of the Sky channels
£6 a month
these days.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have thought it was better than Sky Atlantic HD through the box. In fact, I know it isn't. I think that's it. And I'm watching sport through it. To be quite honest, it's 60 hertz output on these boxes. I don't know what the new one does, but on the old Now TV boxes and the Rocket, it's all 60 hertz output, and it looks choppy as hell. Yeah, it looks rubbish. The sport through it.
Speaking of Now TV, who reckons season 6 of Game of Thrones was the best season ever, or so far rather?
It was
in my
certainly
memory.
good.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it was absolutely stonking, with possibly the best hour of TV I've ever seen in the Battle of the
So to
Bastards.
be clear on this, I mean, how many episodes have we got? Was it one season of 8?
There are 13 episodes to come apparently, maybe 15. I'm not sure, but they think 13 definitely.
Right.
Which means 2 short seasons ahead of us.
Quite a lot to get done in 15 episodes, to be honest.
Yeah, but if it's all thriller and no filler, bring it on. There was too much fanning around in season 5, wasn't there? There's all that mucking about Dawn I could have done without.
Season 5 was required. It didn't, it had to get some placements and stuff sorted.
Yeah, it set up a few things, but I think it could have got to the point a lot quicker. And I think they realised that and thought, right, we better start getting on with this. I mean, how long was Daenerys going to hang around in Esteros before she finally got to Westeros?
I've just been looking at HuffPost. Seemingly, this has been the worst season of Game of Thrones for boobs and bums.
Yes,
it's definitely gone
very
down.
little. There was a very large bell end for those. I think Ed mentioned it a couple of weeks ago. It was quite a shock. But as far as the boobies go, actually, they've obviously stopped their previous rule of having to have a pair of boobs in every single episode. Maybe they fired all the 14-year-olds that were writing it previously, and got some
I think
adults.
they've all moved to Vikings, because you watch the new series of Vikings season 4. There's a lot more tits in that.
Was there boobies in that? Is there?
Yeah, they've upped the
a lot
booby count.
quicker.
Yeah, they've upped the booby count, and maybe that's where they've all gone.
But yes, I think season 6 was stung, and I'm really, really looking forward to season 7 and 8 now. I can't wait.
Right.
Okay, I'm yet to get started with season 1.
Well, you've got a year now to catch up, Phil, before season 7 starts.
You're so behind the times, Phil.
60 episodes.
Yeah, but
I'm on season 2.
are you really? Are you really? Have you started now? Have you?
Yeah.
And I do take your comments quite seriously, Mark. Is it worth me starting?
Yes, but I'm kind of watching it. I'm waiting to see kind of how people react to later series, because one thing that always annoys me is the sense that there might not be a payoff at the end. I want to kind of make sure that this is actually a series that is going to end and not just kind of peter out and be run into the ground. Yeah,
I mean, it is a big investment, isn't it?
Yeah,
I don't think there's any doubt that there's going to be big payoffs coming up.
There's a big end game coming. It's not like Penny Dreadful I was watching on Now TV again, and that's been cancelled to season 3, so it kind of ended very prematurely. I mean, they did say the end at the end, but it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like it just we've been cancelled, and that's the problem with a lot of TV series. That is the problem, isn't it? They get cancelled, and you're sort of halfway, or worse than that. They don't even get through one season, like Firefly, and you think, this is really good. Why can't you finish it? So yeah, I'm always wary to invest too much in a TV series, because I think I might get cancelled halfway through, and I won't get any kind of satisfying payoff. But in the case of Game of Thrones, where clearly there is an end game, there is very much an end game, and I think
have they?
It's going to be.
Sorry, they've deviated now from the novels, have they not?
Well, the novels they've moved past the written novels, so
It would appear they sat George R.R. Martin down in a soundproofed room, and he revealed his intended arcs.
So they've got a basic idea of where the books are going to go.
Because that was my one kind of
books explicitly anyway. They've always deviated in various ways, and obviously, condensed certain characters and this sort of stuff to make it more simple. Even though it's got a very large cast, it's not as big as the books. So they've had to simplify it in certain areas, which they've done. But they're going to head toward. I think they're heading towards the same ultimate conclusion, but they might get there in a slightly different way to the books. Which is fine. It makes me reading the books enjoyable, because they don't be exactly the same as a TV series.
I say this having never read any of the books, but it would appear that they did enough lip service to the books initially to earn the
Season 1 and 2
of George
follow
R.R.
the books
Martin.
very closely. Season 1 and 2 are actually very close, with some minor changes, just to make things slightly simpler. But they deviate. They start to deviate from season 3 onwards a bit.
Yes. I mean, that's as much because it's the same issue albeit over more space that World War Z was trying to deal with. That was a a future history thing with a cast of thousands of people spread out over months of time and the entire planet, and you just simply couldn't. You'd have struggled to turn it into a TV series, let alone a book, let alone a film. And the list of characters. I mean, there are any number of fascinating little characters in the books, it would appear, but that just trying to work them into something which you have to get a reasonable amount done in a 10-episode season, just never going to fly.
Yeah, that's where you amalgamate a lot of characters into one, isn't it? And you have one.
That's what they do. Yeah.
Okay, let's move things on because time is running rapidly against us again. So Sound Advice is back. We are now talking about What Ed, just quickly because we want people to actually read the article. But what's the sound advice for this month?
This month is things you may already have lying around your house that you could use as a very effective piece of source equipment for a hi-fi system, rather than rushing out and having to buy something additional. It's all there in the article, but there are many options, and at least two of them, I think almost everyone reading the piece will own them. So, there are some options straight away for getting a decent stereo source with no additional outlay. So hopefully that's of some use. It might give a few people some ideas about how they can improve the sound quality that they're getting without necessarily having to break the bank whilst they do it.
There we go. That's hardware news. We're done. We're putting it in our pocket. We'll be back with movie news next. So before we kick on with movie news, I forgot to ask Mr. Botwright, any games news?
Nope.
Okay.
In short, everyone, anything of any note was done at E3. Other than that, you've had a little investors Q&A with Nintendo. A couple of things have come out, but it's really not worth getting into.
Okay, so let's see if there's anything worth going to the cinema this Friday to see, Steve.
Ooh, well, this Friday we've got The Legend of Tarzan. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but I don't think the world was crying out for another Tarzan film.
I can't remember a good one. Even the Disney animated thing with Phil Collins doing the soundtrack was terrible.
Oh yeah, that wasn't much cop. And Greystoke, Legend of Tarzan, Lord of the Apes was really boring. Best ones for me, Johnny Weissmuller. Basically, Tarzan, the Ape Man, and Tarzan and his mate is the best one. I think fantastic. And also Maureen O'Sullivan's outfit in that is well saucy for the early 30s. So, and if you've got the uncut version with the nude swimming, it's actually quite good too. That would be my choice. But anyway,
you've got an encyclopedic knowledge of this kind of stuff.
What porn?
You don't necessarily need that, isn't there? There's that magnificent subreddit. Watch it for the plot. Can I just recommend that if you're listening to this at work, please don't head straight to watch it for the plot. Wait until you're in the safety and security of your own home. But I don't know whether it was curated by Withers, but it certainly seems quite encyclopedic.
Yeah, you just have to say to Steve, any tits and bums in this film, and he'll tell you he'll tell you the exact time code.
You've got to remember, I come from a generation with no internet, so there was a lot of pause buttons on the VHS tapes.
There's lots of VHS tapes worn out, yeah.
Yeah, certain points. Legend of Tarzan, it stars, Margot Robbie actually is playing Jane, and it's directed by the guy that, David Yates, who directed the last 4 Potter movies. It's got a big budget. Samuel Jackson's in it. I just think they're going to lose the shirt, because I don't think anyone gives a monkeys about Tarzan anymore. It's been done so many times.
The pun.
Or even Cheetah.
Oh, Cheetah, yeah, excuse the Cheetah.
I just love the way that in the Wiesmuller movies, Umgawa meant a lot of different things. You could do almost anything with Umgawa. But no, I don't know. I mean, does anyone else want to see a Tarzan movie?
No,
didn't think so. Also coming out now You See Me Too, sequel to Now You See Me, which I actually rather enjoyed. I reviewed it when it came out in 2013. It's kind of a sort of a magic, based about magicians and a crime/magic thriller. I enjoyed it. I thought it had a good cast. And Jesse Eisenberg, Mark Ruffalo. This has got largely the same cast as the previous film, plus the addition of Daniel Radcliffe, who looked quite funny in the trailers. I'm quite looking forward to it, actually. Of the films coming out this week, that's the one I'm looking forward to. The other film coming out this week is The Neon Demon, which is a new film from Nicholas Winding Refn, who also made Drive.
Saw a couple of trailers for this, and still ain't got a clue what the film's about.
Yeah, it looks interesting. When he's good, but he can also be quite self-indulgent. I think Drive is a great film, but I did find the one he made after that, the one set in Thailand, Only God Forgives, was a bit self-indulgent.
That was absolutely baffling, according to my wife.
Yeah. The Neon Demon stars Elle Fanning, younger sister of Dakota Fanning, as a sort of 16-year-old model who goes to LA and make a name for herself. And apparently it's described as a sort of version of Wizard of Oz if Dorothy was a psychopath, which actually does sound quite interesting. So it might be worth checking out. Certainly if you're a Nicholas Winding Refn fan, then like Kaz is, for example, I know he'll be up for seeing it. But maybe it might be an acquired taste. But those are what are opening this week. So of the three, the one I will go and see probably is Now You See Me Too. Speaking of Blu-rays, coming out this week, we have Grimsby.
Now, I want to see this just for that one scene that they showed the audience on the Jimmy Fallon show involving elephants, seemingly.
Yes.
I don't know what it entails because I haven't seen it yet, but I think just pure curiosity, I'm going to see that.
I can't say it really appeals to me in terms of the trailer because it just felt like obvious jokes and just too let's have a laugh at Northerners, which is fine sometimes, but it just felt too obvious. But anyway, I will get it for the very same reason that you just said, Phil. Zoolander 2, which I've got and have watched, and is not that good, but it does have bizarrely has a DTSX soundtrack. So there you go.
Oh yeah, well, so you bought it for that then. The thing is with these things, if you're going to have a sequel, the problem is the amount of time that's passed.
Yeah.
And that's the real killer for this one, I think, because there's so much time past any goodwill that was there from the first one and fans from the first one. I don't see how you can carry that off now. And
I think there's definitely a time limit on when you can do a sequel, and it needs to be within about 5 years tops before people start to lose interest. This is what when was Zoolander? Zoolander was back in 2000 and something. 2000 was it? It's like 15 years since that came out.
Yeah.
In the same way that Independence Day Resurgence, 20 years is a long time.
Oh Mike, it's been so funny listening to reviews and stuff on the radio and that kind of thing, and it is genuinely universally just been panned to hell. And it could have been so much better, couldn't it, Ed?
Well, I don't know quite what people were expecting. I don't remember watching the first one and thinking, well, this is
but seemingly
this is a film for the ages. It to me actually did pretty much what I was expecting.
Did you go and see it?
I did go and see it.
Oh right, excellent.
Actually, I have a beg to make on this podcast once I've finished speaking this. I don't know what people were expecting. It was crap, but it was sort of usefully overblown and periodically lively crap. It's a good bad movie. I just sort of conversely, there was a trailer for Absolutely Fabulous film, and that looks like a bad movie.
That looks shocking, didn't it?
And there was also a trailer for the new Bourne film, and I'm left wondering. I was all up for seeing that, and it doesn't seem to be. It didn't look terribly Bourne-like from the trailer. So,
but again, those are films where there's been quite a gap in time. Ab Fab hitting the big screen. How many decades ago did that series finish?
It's been a while, yes.
Yeah, it started in the early 90s, didn't it?
Yes.
So at least 20-odd years, 23 years, I think, ago it started.
What we're going to get next? The Vicar of Dibley, the movie?
Oh, well, stand by your beds. Can I, just whilst I remember, obviously this podcast goes out to a many and varied group of people. When I went to see Independence Day, at some point, either whilst I was in the film or in the restaurant or the taxi, whatever, suffice to say, I have lost the bezel for my watch. Now, unfortunately, my watch is 28 years old, so there are no spare parts. It's going to be a case of hunting down a dead example of the same watch and actually just stripping parts off it. So if anyone has either a Heuer or a Tag Heuer, where the number on the back starts 980 5.006 and it doesn't work, or they're feeling insanely charitable or insanely generous, just get hold of me in the comments of the podcast and we can get talking and so on and so forth. The watch has tremendous sentimental value to me. I do need to try and get it all put back together again. And I am resigned to the fact that it's going to be essentially a sort of treasure hunt around the world to try and find the correct part that is currently whereabouts unknown. So if anyone is feeling insanely charitable, please feel free to get in touch and pass that on to any lunatic horologist friends of yours.
At what point did the AVForums podcast become a personal question? I mean, we're going to be doing classifieds next, are we? Or dating services.
Well, I don't know why I say this, but can I get back to the Blu-rays?
I said it. I mean, okay, if it gets expunged, it gets expunged. But I could really do with a helping hand here.
Okay, so if any of our 5 listeners can help Ed out here, then feel free to get in touch with them via the comments in the podcast section.
Right.
Are we done? Are we done with personal quests and that kind of thing? Anybody want to sell something on the classifieds? Do it live here.
I've got a Casio data bank you can borrow.
Well, actually, do you know what? Going back to Steve's Freebie Island, I was at the Yamaha trip to Milan, and against all odds, when they were doing the little press pack things, in addition to the press pack, instead of like the usual earphones or whatever, there was a watch, so I can put my existing watch on ice whilst it's sort of unwearable because the glass is exposed on the edges. I do at least have a means of telling the time. So as I say, I can now concentrate on the long-term project of trying to find this missing part. So there is a little happy ending to it.
Is it a Yamaha branded watch? Is it?
It is a Yamaha factory racing MotoGP watch. It's very black.
Yeah. They I keep forgetting they do motorbikes.
They do. It's all right, and it's an analog face watch, so that makes me happy. So
okay, right. So at some point we were talking about Zoolander 2 on Blu-ray. Is there anything else, Steve?
Yeah, and also out on Blu-ray this week is House of Cards season 4, which I have to say is a cracking season. Season 3 wasn't that good. Back on form with season 4. So if you haven't already watched it on Netflix and you would rather watch it on Blu-ray, go and get it.
Now, obviously available 4K on Netflix. Mark, have you had a look at it? Would you just watch it in 4K for your $5.99? So your $8.99 if you've got 4K.
Absolutely, yeah. It looks fantastic. It looks stunning. Absolutely stunning.
Yeah. So do you see the? I think the Blu-ray. The only advantage you got there is probably the soundtrack.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
That is the only real advantage.
What is the soundtrack on the Blu-ray?
It'll be Dolby True DTS HD Master Audio 5.1.
5.1.
Also, just so on Netflix news, apparently earlier in the week, Netflix UK uploaded all of the Next Generation, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, the original series,
Seriously?
And Enterprise. Yes.
Oh, I'll have to go and delve into that.
Get some serious trekking. I mean, yeah, great news. I mean, obviously, what with them cracking down on the VPNs and stuff like that, it's nice to suddenly get given a big clutch of my of my shows from my formative years. If they could just give us Better Off Ted, I'd be a very happy camper.
Did you say Enterprise there?
I did say Enterprise. I mean, I'm sorry, Enterprise.
No. I've never given it a chance, so I'm going to give it a chance.
Oh, I thought it was absolute gash. It was one of those things where, oh no, they're in peril again, and you honestly couldn't give two shits if they lived or died.
Right. You see, I didn't give it a chance when it came out. I'll watch maybe the first couple of it and see where I go.
Once you hear the theme tune, you'll love it, Phil.
Really? Okay.
Is that the one with the song?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. I remember I did. When I was on Netflix US, I watched the episode of Deep Space Nine where they go back into the original series with
Trials and Tribulations.
That was a great episode.
It is fantastic.
Well, it actually had All Good Things was on one of the
Sci-Fi the other day.
Sci-Fi or something like that, yeah. And that was quite enjoyable watching that again, that old one. But you go back and you see some of the episodes, and the overt messaging within the stories. It's like, oh Christ. You could have done without that. It just,
Some of it was a bit heavy-handed, wasn't it?
It was just a little bit, yeah.
Yes.
Interesting to see what this new Star Trek series is going to be like.
Yes, that could be.
Yeah.
What with obviously the wind being taken out of the sails of the reboot a bit by Star Wars, hoving back into view. I'll be very interested.
And the fact the third film looks like complete bollocks in the trailers.
Well,
So.
yeah, well, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I have to say,
yeah.
I don't. When the trailer for the actual 2009 reboot appeared, actually, that looked tonally all over the place and bonkers, and I was pleasantly surprised by the film. So I will give it the benefit of the doubt.
I just don't. I mean, for me, Star Trek, you need to be on the Enterprise, but in the trailer, they blow it up in the first 2 seconds. So...
Oh, this is the big problem, isn't it? Every big major Star Trek film, the Enterprise gets it.
Yeah, stop blowing up the Enterprise, will you? That is a character in the story to me. So I want the ship to be around, not pieces. So yeah, I mean, as soon as they did that, they immediately lost me. I'm like, I don't want to watch that. I don't want to see them fanning around on some planet. I want to see them, Star Trekking.
Around the universe. Yeah. Star Trekking around the universe.
Klingons on the starboard bow. Speaking of, actually, I was going to say there's no real Ultra HD Blu-ray news this week, but semi-associated with that, going back to Netflix, as of the 1st of July, so the day we're recording this, you can now watch all of season 2 of Marco Polo. So obviously HDR10 for those that've got it, or even Dolby Vision if you have an LG TV.
And you have big enough pipes, Steve?
Yes, and you've got a decent connection. So we've obviously interviewed quite a few people that have been involved in this series over the last 6 months. So, I mean, I know a lot of work has gone into this series, season 2 in particular, in terms of HDR and Ultra HD 4K. So for those that are capable of watching it, and I'm thinking of Mark here right now.
I'm HDR-less at the moment.
Are you? Well, you won't be for very long though, because you've got
not for very long.
KS8000 coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that should look stunning on that. So yeah.
We, like I say, fast running out of time yet again on the podcast. This does happen because we tend to go off on tangents for some strange reason.
I think we've been fairly on topic this week.
From you, Ed.
Well, yeah, okay, that's a given. We haven't
lost
when have we ever done Lost and Founds? Yeah. So
and talking about the tragedy of regional British museums.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. But that's still on point.
Is there any tragic museums that you've been at recently, Mr. Botwright?
No, I went to the Tank Museum not that long ago.
What, Bovington?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
I love that.
Great.
That's good.
Really, really cool.
And the good thing is they've got one of those kind of old style arcade kind of shooting game type things that they're still always fun when they've got a realistic looking gun on them.
Mm.
Well, you see, I've lived near Durham for 15 years now, and they have the big military museum in Durham. I've never ever been to it, and sadly, I think it's closing.
I've been to the National Tramway Museum more times than I'd like. My grandparents used to live where it was.
Really exciting.
It was boring as hell.
There's I would say also Beatrix Potter's house in the Lake District. The woman had very little taste, and the house is really, really.
I've been there as well.
What's the other one? There's one by me called Beamish as well. Don't know if you've heard of
I like
Beamish.
Beamish.
Yeah, I've never been. It's like 5 minutes away from me. I've never
Beamish is really good. You should wait until it's a nice sunny day. Make sure you wear appropriate head protection, and have it's a good day out. Trust me.
Yeah,
I'm not being facetious here. I genuinely enjoyed Beamish.
Okay.
Well, and you can give us some hot 4K tram footage for test work as well.
Yeah, well, like I say, it's like 5 minutes away from me. I've never been. And of course, Hadrian's Wall's like 15 minutes away. I've never been to that either.
You need to get out a bit more film. That's all I can say.
Again, on a good day, it's just a lovely part of the world.
I've done bits of the wall, but I haven't done the whole thing. You know, I haven't gone to the.
I know it's fairly long.
No, you know what I mean. Like they've got the fort. There's like the fort.
Yeah, I know.
And that kind of thing. And I haven't done any of that. I can't remember the name of the fort now, but it's
no one ever bothers
famous.
going to ones that are really close to them.
Yes.
Well, that's it. You never do stuff on your own
I lived
doorstep.
for years in Exeter, and they've got those Roman tunnels or something underneath it. And every day I'd walk past it and just think, I'll do it another day. Never bothered.
Yeah. No, like I say, I mean, I've been here 15, nearly 20 years. Been down here, and there's lots of things that I've done once, like Durham Cathedral, done that once. You know, World Heritage sites and stuff. But if you live next to it, you just don't do it. And of course, there's loads in Milton Keynes, isn't there, history?
Be nice. Actually, Milton Keynes Museum is actually... and we've got Bletchley Park down
Bletchley
in...
Park, definitely worth a visit.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And there are some odds and sods. I mean, as I say, yes, Milton Keynes isn't particularly old, so obviously, it's a bit different. But it's in an area where people have been doing some quite lively and historical things for some time. I mean, actually, within 90 seconds walk of my house are 2 original Buckinghamshire brick kilns, and they're very rare. Most of them haven't survived.
Yeah. Well, seemingly Time Team. I keep catching up with Time Team now and again. It's on different channels in the back end of Freeview TV, but I used to love that when it was on. And the number of Time Teams that have happened round about where I live, because it's such a rich Roman heritage. I mean, the village I live in, it's called Longovisium. It's got a fort at the top of the hill, but you're not allowed to go in there because it's private land. But it's just so rich in Roman history and all that. And I like Roman stuff. It's just I've never gotten around to doing anything with it.
The moral of this story, listeners, is that it's time to start appreciating your local culture.
Yeah.
So Phil's going to get off for some tram action.
Yeah, get out of your home cinemas, people.
In the future after Brexit, we'll be stuck with regional museums.
Yeah, let's face it, you won't be going abroad because our currency will be worth precisely nothing.
And they won't let us in.
Okay, so to wrap up on this, this podcast is just growing and growing and going longer and longer. Very briefly, what films do we wish we'd originally seen at the cinema? And I'm not talking about Independence Day and like real old classics, the stuff that we really wanted to see on the big screen. And I'm going to say the big tentpole films of the 50s. I think I would love to have been around to see them in all their 70mm glories. Things like films like Ben-Hur, big tentpole films like that, Cleopatra, the original widescreen films, original 235 and 276:1 epics. I think that would have been Cinerama. I would love to have seen. I've been in a Cinerama cinema in Los Angeles, but they weren't showing any Cinerama films at the time. But they had the full 3 projector setup. I'd love to have seen that. Something like How the West Was Won, or the one with the roller coaster, which is seemingly really, really.
That's
for
the
the
Cinerama,
time.
The roller coaster one is iconic, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a YouTube video of it, but it's not really the same thing.
No, I mean, just saying. I mean, I went to see Avatar in this cinema, and it had the wraparound screen, but it was only using a small percentage of the screen. Obviously, for Avatar, it was 235 version that they were showing, and that was on 2 big digital projectors. But they had the original projectors in the auditorium. You could see them, and you just seeing the size of the screen and how it wrapped around you. You could imagine what the effect was like. I would love to have seen that.
Yeah, I'm with you, Phil. I think it would have been great to have seen some of these, the big 65mm, 70mm presentations in the 50s and into the 60s. So, like you say, Ben-Hur, seeing Ben-Hur on the big screen would have been fantastic. Lawrence of Arabia. I mean, I have seen that on the big screen, but that was on a reissue in 35mm. To see it in its original 70mm presentation would have been stunning. I would love to have seen 2001. I mean, again, I did see that at the cinema on a reissue in, I think it was 79. To see it originally projected, in 65mm, again, would have been stunning. And Cinerama, yeah, that would have been really interesting to see that back. I mean, I'm sure it would have been an unusual, the whole idea of 3 synchronized projectors, it kind of looked great. It kind of worked particularly well. Because even on the Blu-ray, you've got the Blu-ray avenue of How the West Was Won.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best.
And they've obviously gone in and they've tried to remove the obvious joins as much as they can digitally, but you can still see where they put trees in places where there's going to be a join. In this
well, they couldn't do any close-ups because obviously they had 3 big cameras, so you couldn't do any close-up work. So everything's just wide expanse. Even when characters are talking, it's wide shots. It's all wide shots because they couldn't get the cameras in close enough to people. But one of the best authored Blu-rays, I think.
Yeah,
the
it looks stunning.
detail is stunning on that. As is Lawrence of Arabia. Do not miss that. Go and buy the Blu-ray of that, and if you've got a projector, you're in for a treat because I still go back to that, and you just wow.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely, if you're looking for things coming out at some point on Ultra HD Blu-ray, then Lawrence of Arabia has to be top of my list for. That's going to look absolutely unbelievable.
Yep, really looking forward to that, and it should be interesting as well. Some big Warner stuff was done not that long ago as 4K masters, and the rumour is that some of them are getting HDR makeovers as well, so we could be in for some real treats for some big tentpole films.
Yeah, definitely. And in terms of other films, I'd love to have seen The Exorcist at the cinema when it came out, because you can imagine the reaction that must have got from the audience. Because I mean, even now, it's a strong film. It would never have been made today, but even it's still shocking to this day, and a powerful film. And I would quite like to have seen that with an audience in '73 and see how they reacted to it.
I think maybe Wizard of Oz would have been a good one when it first came out at the cinema. Just that reaction when it went.
Yeah,
from
it was one of the
black and white
first.
to
It was one of the
colour.
first widely seen Technicolor releases. There had been Technicolor before that, but it was one of the. There was so many cinemas actually set up for that, and of course it didn't happen like it happens now, where films open on 1,000 screens or 1,500 screens on a weekend. Films toured around cities and toured around the UK, so it was never always on at the same place, and but it was one of the most widely seen Technicolor films of its time.
Must have been great too, that when it goes from transitions from black and white into full Technicolor.
Just seeing the original 3 strip, that would have been fantastic. Really would.
I have to say, different again, based on audience reaction. I would have liked to have seen the original Italian Job at the cinema, just for because in many ways, I mean, obviously the ending we know is a fudge. A different ending was shot and wasn't passed. But it's one of the first.
What was the original ending then?
That they make it to Switzerland, and then Michael Caine and the mafia bloke shoot each other, and both the mafiosi and the heist team are left standing outside a bank to which none of them know the combination for the gold. So in some regards, it's no less ambiguous, and I don't know exactly why it was canned, but the bus
I definitely
ending,
prefer the ending it's got now.
the bus ending was,
It's really funny.
say one of the first sort of, if you like, truly ambiguous endings of its type. I would have been
Or you
interested
could also call it a genuine cliffhanger.
Well, absolutely. I'd have been interested to see that, and I would have liked to have gone to have seen many of the 70s disaster movies as intended.
Yeah,
I'd like to see the Towering
Earthquake.
Inferno and stuff like that.
Oh, actually, I did see the Towering Inferno at the cinema in '74. So
Yes, I know, that's because you're very old.
Yeah.
How old were you? You're only how old were you? 7?
7, yeah. I saw it at a double bill with Man with a Golden Gun, bizarrely.
Okay.
And I was very confused at 7 because I thought I couldn't really distinguish between Paul Newman and Steve McQueen a lot of the time. Kind of seem like the same guy.
And on that bombshell. We've run out of time, unfortunately, on the AVForums podcast. But my thanks to Steve Withers.
Isn't there a proud tradition in the FBI of men wearing dresses?
Mark Hodgkinson.
Want to know how they did it? Just say the magic word.
Ed Selley.
If you could reenact that look of absolute befuddlement, it would be perfect for the cover of my DVD.
And Mark Botwright.
Break a leg.
Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook, and you need to be leaving us these 5-star iTunes ratings. We've forgotten again this week. But
Basically, we'll just do an entire podcast.
Yeah,
on
we'll
end of the year, 5-star review.
Yeah, obviously, if you leave a witty comment, and it's more likely to get read out, and leave them there, and we'll read your names out and all that kind of thing. And also bookmark AVForums for the latest reviews, news, and video. I'm Phil Hinton. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you again next Monday.